War has consequences. The stake starts now. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Stakes. I'm Tara Setmayer. Welcome tonight. We are still at war with Iran, despite what the administration tells you. And there's a lot going on today. We actually had two domestic terrorist attacks on American soil today that were pretty much directly linked to our meddling in the Middle East and Iran, unfortunately. We had an attack on a synagogue in Michigan. The attacker was killed. We're not sure how yet, but he drove his car into a daycare part of the synagogue, and he had some major explosives in the back. Could have been way worse. Thank God no one was injured except hurt really badly, except for a security guard that engaged him. There were a couple. Thank God the synagogue had armed security. They're not sure if it was that or if it was the car catching on fire or he killed himself. We don't know yet. It's still ongoing, but clearly an anti Semitic attack. And then we have today, I didn't even realize this till after, that there was a shooter at Old Dominion in Virginia who killed one person, injured two others. He was killed. And this guy was in prison for material support for ISIS and shouted Allahu Akbar before he opened fire and was taken down by another student. This is a mess, okay? And this is all directly tied into what's happened in Iran and what's flared up in the Middle East. We're going to talk about that and a little bit more. I have a special guest tonight. We're going to talk about the SAVE Act as well, because that's still a thing. It's still happening. There's other news going on. Donald Trump is, hiding behind what's happening in Iran with everything else that's going on in this country. But there's a lot of other things happening, including that. So we're going to have Max Flugrath from Fair Fight join in a couple minutes to talk about the SAVE Act and the really, really good work that they're doing uncovering what's happening and fighting against it. I'm also going to get into some news about Doge. Remember those guys? Remember those idiots? A year ago, we were in the middle of Doge decapitating our government. Well, there's some news. They're back in the headlines. And I'm going to talk a little bit as to why a little bit later in the show. And also, we have a new promo up. It's live. We're going to show that to you guys. It's No Kings, one of a series of promos that we're doing in partnership with No Kings and Indivisible. So we'll show that later in the show as well. And of course, my bright spot. But while we're all getting settled in, head over to your social, head over to Twitter if you're watching us there on Twitter, and repost this live stream right now. I'm actually going to do the same. We're going to do it together because StreamYard and Twitter has a kind of weird thing going on now, and it does not automatically post. So it's there in the lives, but you have to go to your stream and repost it so that people can see what's happening. And I'm going to do the same right now with you before we get into the show. That way people can find us on Twitter. But we're also on YouTube streaming live over there too. But please, you take that stream and you can post it on your Twitter as well and send people directly there. So let me do that before we get into the show so folks can find us. And there we go. And there we go. Repost it. All right, there we go. So, Iran. A little bit of the breaking news that I started the show with about what happened. There were domestic terrorist attacks on American soil, 2 in one day. And the fact that folks aren't framing it that way almost tells me that people have become numb to this now. And that's the scariest part about all of this. We just cannot become numb to the consequences of what's going on. Now, we still know we're almost 2 weeks into this thing. We're $11 billion into this excursion. Did you guys hear that? Trump said he called it an excursion. What an idiot. This guy's a fucking moron. I just cannot. Oh, it's a little excursion. Anyway, We're $11 billion into this thing. Trump has said, oh, we won, apparently. We won, but we still have some work to do. We still have to finish it up or whatever. The Strait of Hormuz, there's ships on fire. Okay. Iran's clearly not done. They're laying mines this week, it was reported, in the Strait of Hormuz. There is a Thai ship, tanker on fire. I mean, this thing is clearly not over. It's very much not over. Even Joe Rogan was skeptical about this thing being over by the stupid UFC fight that's scheduled to be on the White House lawn in June. And even he was like, yeah, I don't know. It's going to be kind of weird having a UFC fight in the middle of us at war, because I don't think this thing's going to be done by June. I mean, even Joe Rogan gets it, so it tells you a lot. But they can't get their story straight. And this tragedy in this, the Jewish population, Jews around the world are targets. They are less safe now. My friend Juliette Kayyem, who's one of the terrorism analysts, Homeland Security analysts over at CNN, she said, you're kidding yourself if you think that we are in our security posture is safer now than it was before Donald Trump's war of choice, my words, in Iran. And she's right, evidenced by what happened today. The alleged guy who did this thing in Michigan had family. They claim, it's the reports that just before we came on air, has family that was killed in Lebanon recently by the Israelis. So I guess this is in retaliation. And then the Old Dominion guy who was in prison for 6 years for material support for ISIS and got out in 2024, why the FBI wasn't still monitoring him or why he wasn't deported, I don't know. But he came right back now and tried to have a mass shooting. Thank God he was taken down at Old Dominion. They're related. But guess what else? You have people out here in the Trump administration, like I said, still can't get their story straight. Talking about, well, the gas prices, it's just going to be, it's temporary. It's just for short term. Remember how gas prices used to be a metric? Donald Trump was bragging about, oh, gas prices are down and blah, blah, blah. And it used to be a metric, right? Like the unemployment rate. Well, guess what? Unemployment is up over 4%. It's at 4.4%. We've got hundreds of thousands of job losses under Donald Trump in the last year. And gas prices jumped 60% in the last week. 60 cents in the last week. 60 cents. All because of Donald Trump. This is what the administration, now they all talk from the same sheet of paper. You don't believe me? Trust me. They send out the talking points and everybody gets them. Here you go. Take a look.
Term pain for the long-term gain.
Short-term pain be for long-term gain.
We're going to have some short-term pain with long-term gain.
Short-term pay for a long-term gain.
Some short-term pain, yes, but we've got some long-term gain. Short-term spike for a long-term gain.
Some short-term pain for American consumers.
We may have to deal with that in the short term.
Short-term and temporary.
Temporary short-term pain.
It's going to suck in the short term.
Some short-term pain.
Short-term pain. We have to focus on the short term.
Short-term.
Short-term.
Short-term. Short-term and long-term.
Short-term blip. Hopefully this is a short-term pain. Short-term is highly outweighed of the long-term benefits.
Some short-term pain for the long-term gain.
Short-term sacrifice for a long-term gain.
So if anybody ever questions whether they literally send out the talking points to everyone, there you have it. There it is. They are all singing from the same sheet of propaganda music. That was a couple days ago. That was earlier in the week. You know why? Because oil shot up to $120 freaking dollars a barrel on Monday, and before it came back down again. And that's why Trump has been lying, telling people, oh, no, the war's over. It's pretty much over. He did that to try to calm the oil markets down. And it worked kind of, sort of, until they realized, wait, hold on a second. That's actually not true. So today, this is what Senator Scott said.
It's fascinating to me that Democrats now talk about gas prices. Under Obama and under Biden, they tried to destroy the U.S. oil and gas industry. So we want prices to come down. I think, unfortunately, prices are going to be up for a while until this ends. But with Venezuela coming on, with American oil and gas coming on, with hopefully a positive resolution to this conflict, then prices will come down even further.
I guess Senator Scott didn't get the memo. He's trying to save his own ass. Eh, this is not going away. This is not going away, and this war is far from over. There's still a lot going on, and I'm not quite sure what the end game is, and I don't know if the administration does either because they can't get their story straight about why we started it, why we're in it, and what looks like victory. But we're going to put a pin in that for right now because, as I promised, we're going to bring in tonight's special guest because while all of this is going on, there's other stuff happening right under our noses that are threatening our elections. And actually, there is some relationship here to it because I firmly believe that part of why they've started this is because Donald Trump wants an excuse to try to either stop our elections, declare a national emergency. Are they taunting some of these sleeper cells or folks who are radicalized to act so that they can count that as a national emergency? I don't know, but I think all of it has to do with distracting from what they're trying to do to our 2026 midterm elections. Let's bring in Max Flugrath, my special guest tonight. Max, how are you, my dear friend?
Tara, doing as well as anyone could do in these times. Thanks so much for having me.
It's a loaded question, right? I say that all the time when people, because it's just like a natural thing. Hey, how you doing? And I'm like, do you want me to answer you honestly? I'm like, well, like physically, I'm okay, all things considered, but it's a lot. It's a lot every single day. For those who don't know, Max is the comms director for Fair Fight, and you guys are out here doing the Lord's work and have been for years, particularly on the protecting the election, the integrity of our votes, especially down in Georgia. And you have recently really done deep dives into what's going on with this freaking SAVE Act that they've now renamed the Save America Act because Donald Trump admitted it at one of his rallies that, oh, no one knows what the SAVE Act is. It's the Save America Act because it's always about branding. It's kind of a smart move, actually, but doesn't matter. It doesn't make it any less nefarious. I wanted you to come on tonight because, like I said, you and I talked about this earlier today, that there's so much going on that we're being distracted from because, and it's a big deal, there's a freaking war in the Middle East that could spiral into a World War III. But while that's going on, there's still a lot of nefarious stuff happening concerning our elections. Talk about it.
Yeah, a lot of stuff. That's a great way to put it. We can start with the SAVE Act. Like you just said, right? The SAVE Act versus the Save America Act, basically the same thing. I saw Trump actually post an angry truth the other day, kind of demanding what you alluded to is, don't call it the SAVE Act. So when I saw that, I told my team, well, we're definitely still calling it the SAVE Act.
Correct.
And, I'm sure your audience is very, up to speed because y'all do such a great job of keeping them informed on sort of the big pictures of the SAVE Act, the forced new documents that take time and money to get if you want to register. But, there's one part of the SAVE Act that's a little bit less talked about, and you won't hear any Republicans mention it. And it's a stipulation in the bill that requires states to run the entirety of their voter rolls, so their whole registration list of their state, through a federal database. And that federal database is the SAVE database, aptly named. This database, I believe, is used to sort of verify immigration status of different folks who are part of different government programs. Maybe they're getting support in one way or another. But a ProPublica investigation recently, a couple weeks ago, revealed that this database consistently mistakes citizens, so American citizens, for non-citizens, and it marks them as such. So they want to force states to run the entirety of their voter registration list through a database that is known to make mistakes. And that opens the door to sort of like massive incorrect voter purges. So I don't know about you, Tara, but if you're going to purge everyone from the rolls, and at the same time, you're going to create these new requirements for documents that take months and months and months to get, it seems like that could set up sort of an unprecedented voter suppression engine.
No. Do you think? I mean, of course, we all know that that's the goal here. It is about the voter suppression efforts that the Republicans failed at before. they've tried for years. They've been trying little things here and there. And I feel like Georgia was kind of the petri dish. It was
Yes,
where they
kind of the
started.
laboratory.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And all the way back to when was it Brian Kemp that purged the voter rolls back when Stacey Abrams was running? Was it Kemp or was it
Correct.
Rafferty? It was
Very,
Kemp,
very
right?
close to the election right before. Yes.
Right. So they've been trying ways to do this in the past, and then of course obviously January 6th being the biggest example. But they learned from their mistakes, and now a lot of those loonies are paid for by our tax dollars, working inside the Department of Homeland Security at the federal level. And then you also have a lot of these people that are in state and local offices across the country in these key districts. And Georgia, again, with what they did in Fulton County and what's happening in Fulton County it's a microscope, a lens into what they're trying to do everywhere else, right?
Very apt way to put it. You're spot on. I like to say Fulton County is kind of ground zero for the big lie. It's in a state that Republicans won for decades and decades, right? And then it's centered in a county, Fulton County, that is the largest, bluest county, which has the largest Black population in the state. And so if you look at the other cities that, Trump and MAGA tried to brand as fraudulent, Detroit, Milwaukee, Philadelphia, what do these cities have in common? They're all large Black population centers. And, it dates back to Jim Crow, accusations of fraud, trying to sort of make people think in these large Black cities, there's fraud. We know the real goal, though. It's voter suppression. They don't want these people to vote because, by and large, when these people come out and vote, they don't vote for people like Donald Trump.
And they know that. And because they're shifting demographics, they're targeting certain areas that they have been for years lying about when it comes to voter fraud, or there's problems, or and the crazy part about this is that most of the voter fraud that we have found over the last couple of years has been from Republicans. North Carolina.
There was a Georgia Republican
right?
official that voted 8 or 9 times, Tara.
Right. Georgia.
Wild.
Right. It's crazy. We have not heard story after story here about this massive fraud happening on the Democrat side. I mean, it's just not measurable, and they know this, but it doesn't matter. Propagandists don't care. They're going to say whatever they want, because if they repeat the lie enough, people believe it, and that's how we've gotten into this mess in the first place. Now, back to the SAVE Act. For us as a women-led organization, we've been laser focused on pointing out how difficult it's going to make it to vote for women, married women. And that's something different, because when I was and I've mentioned this before, when I worked in the Hill a million years ago, the SAVE Act has come up a few times, and it was always about immigration and verifying, making sure, because back then it was about document fraud, and there were some problems with that, with the document fraud for public benefits and things like that. So they were trying to use the SAVE Act to counter that. This was like 15, 16 years ago. Now it has morphed into this full-on voter suppression thing that they're masquerading as, oh, it's wrong if you need an ID to get a beer or medicine, or board a plane. What's wrong with showing an ID when you vote? And we all know that that's not what this is about. Can you just talk
Absolutely
a little bit
not.
more about why? Because people are like, the MAGAs are trying to turn it around and say that we're the ones insulting women and people of color, that they're too stupid to get the documents they need. That's ridiculous. We all know that's a disingenuous argument. Why should we be concerned about what they're talking about for these requirements for women in particular?
Well, real quick, I do want to address the voter ID aspect of this, because, a bunch of states have voter ID law. I live in Georgia. There's a voter ID law here.
Yeah.
But what the SAVE Act wants, and what Republicans, when they say voter ID, they don't really mean something as simple as, you show up with a driver's license. And that's why the SAVE Act isn't simple. But I want to give you a quick example about the types of voter ID laws that Republicans like to pass. In 2013, North Carolina passed a voter ID law. And it was eventually struck down in court. And what they found when they went through this whole legal process and they kind of drilled into the evidence and discovery and all that, is that essentially Republican legislators, they had looked at the types of ID that Black residents of their state had or were most likely to have. And they basically picked the IDs that Black folks were least likely to have. And they made that the required form of ID. The judge, when he ruled to strike down this law, he said that the quote was, it targeted Black voters with almost surgical precision. And so this isn't a simple thing like you show up with your driver's license. This is about adding hurdles and red tape and small things. It's a death by 1,000 cuts model. That's a tried and true Republican strategy dating back to, I just gave an example from 2013, but it goes way back.
Right.
So, that I just want people to remember that when you hear voter ID, think a little harder. It's not that simple.
And also remember, it took how many years? 10 years to implement Real ID, at least. I just went a couple months ago to get my Real ID because I was getting threatening letters that you can't board a plane with your old license. You got to get a Real ID. And I'm like, all right, nobody wants to go to the freaking DMV, right? But actually, Virginia has a decent system here. It's not as bad as my home state of New Jersey, which is going to the DMV was like, forget about it. It's the absolute worst. But here, Virginia is pretty good. But they're saying that you can't just use even the Real IDs now. They want
that's correct,
right? They want
only if you live in one of 5 states. There's only 5 states that offer sort of an enhanced Real ID, which is a way to prove citizenship. So Real ID doesn't cut it in the majority of the states. And I did want to drill into the married women last name issue that you mentioned. Republicans like to act like the SAVE Act has a plan for that, has a fix for that. It really just kicks it to the states. And so you're telling me that you want to pass a federal law in, we're in March now, right? I don't know when they think they're going to pass it because they don't have the votes. But then you're going to basically assume every state very quickly is going to get a new requirement up to speed and inform all of their citizens there about it and make the system work. Now, this is an intended failure point that's, I believe, created to disenfranchise as many Americans as possible. And just look at the polls every day, the generic ballot polls. Republicans are losing handily, and they know they're going to lose handily if the 2026 election is fair.
Mm-hmm. So, of course, they have to rig the system. And, it's a tactic that Donald Trump learned from his mentors, Roy Cohn and Roger Stone, that you accuse your opponent of doing what you're actually doing to try to throw people off.
It's all projection.
Always. And this is the whole rigged election, rigged system. That's exactly what Trump and his cronies are trying to do at every level. And they failed at it at the federal level. So now they're trying to do it at the state level. And then, if the states fight back, because I don't know, there's something called the 10th Amendment that, and it's in the Constitution that the states are supposed to run elections. That's why Donald
very
Trump
clearly stated, yes.
Very clearly, like it's written in the Constitution, not like they give a damn about it, because Donald Trump wipes his fat ass with the Constitution every single day with the stuff that he does, which is a horrible image, I know, but unfortunately, we're living through that nightmare. And so, but we're seeing states start to push back. I mean, that goes even to what you just talked about, and I think we have the headline of the ProPublica story. That database, the fact that they named it SAVE, that story, and ProPublica, shout out to them too. They have really been doing incredible work. You guys, if you
honestly
can support ProPublica, because this is where the future of journalism. They are a nonprofit. They don't have corporate overlords, and they are the ones uncovering so much of this investigative work. They're incredible. But what they talk about here is that this database issue, to me at least, it seems like that is their way of trying to federalize the elections, as you mentioned earlier, to like a workaround. Like, why do they need to upload all this information up into this into a major database like that if they don't plan on the feds meddling in it? I'm going to talk about some Doge stuff later after you're gone. If you think this is bad, wait till you hear what they did with Social Security. But
I've heard.
Yeah. But talk about this database, because it's all the mistakes that it's making are, I remember Republicans when they flipped out over the Obamacare rollout, and how, I mean, it was like a front page story on every right-wing media station possible, from talk radio to Fox. It was constantly like, oh, look at what the Obamacare website had crashed. It had the wrong number. And this thing right here, this is pretty important.
Yeah, well, I mean, so the database, like you mentioned, it's a federal database. I believe it's administered by DHS, and you know,
Great.
important thing here is, you mentioned some of these election deniers from 2020. Sort of the election deniers are the folks that tried to help Trump overturn his loss. Um, the sort of seeming one of the most prominent ones is a 2020 attorney for Trump named Cleta Mitchell, and
Oh yeah.
Cleta Mitchell was reported as playing a quote central role in Trump's efforts to overturn his loss. She was on the call with Brad Raffensperger, trying to get him to find the votes that Trump didn't win. And so after they weren't successful in overturning his loss, she's got to work, and she made a new group called the Election Integrity Network. And what it's become sort of the connective tissue of the election denier movement. And so Mother Jones reported last year that members associated with that group were in talks with, I believe it was the DOJ or maybe the DHS. Sorry, it was the DOJ, about using a database they created to try and scan the voter rolls. Democracy Docket has reported that they've also talked with DHS about similar things. And so this group, I just want to flag for y'all, they kind of have their hand in every pot of election-related issues that Trump cares about at the moment. The draft executive order, you can link that to them. The Washington Post reported a couple weeks ago, Cleta Mitchell, who I just mentioned, was at the White House. She was meeting with officials there specifically to talk about elections. And sort of the final point to cap this off is that if you look at the goals of this group, Mitchell has created what she calls her U.S. Citizens Elections Bill of Rights. They got it up on one of their websites somewhere. It basically says like little to no early voting. I think it used to be no early voting. Maybe they changed it now to a little bit. It's either very little or no vote by mail. They don't want any voting machines. They basically want to make elections as narrow as possible.
Right. Day of only, right? Like states
in
like
person,
Oregon,
day
right?
of,
Oregon,
hand
Minnesota,
counting ballots.
right?
Yep.
They have all mail-in balloting. Like, I mean, all mail-in voting, and it's worked with no problems for years. So like
Well, Trump voted by mail for years in Florida.
Right. That's right. But
So
they
again,
made
with the projection.
they carved out an exception, right, for military, I think, because initially they hadn't when they started this bullshit, and the military folks were like, excuse us, but we're deployed, like we are on assignment. We need to be able to vote by mail." And they're like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna put you in as an exception." Like it's
Well, they've also sued to try and change those requirements. So, like, maybe they took them out of the SAVE Act or whatever, but they have still advanced lawsuits to try and stop that from happening. And basically, it's been sort of the law and practice for a long time now that most states, if you serve abroad or even if you just live abroad and you're a citizen, you can still vote. But, you're mailing your ballot in from across the world potentially. So if it arrives a day late, 2 days, couple days late, there's essentially a cutoff date a couple days after the election where your ballot can still arrive by. Now, usually the number of ballots that come in are so small that it doesn't make a difference.
right.
But for some reason, this group is very focused on that. They have been for a couple of years. They've done it in the courts and legislation. And in that draft executive order that leaked that the Washington Post reported on, that added new requirements for even uniformed service members to vote.
And then also they're messing around with the postal service, right? Like, didn't they change the rules that it used to be as long as it's postmarked before the election day, it would be counted. Now that's no more, right?
That's correct, I believe.
That again, these are things that are slipping in through the cracks that because there's such a fire hose of fuckery all the time that people are, you can only, you're over here looking at this, looking at that. And then you're like, oh, next thing you know, you go to vote, like what happened in Texas recently. And with redistricting and all this, they've changed your voting locations. They've got these databases claiming that, oh, you're a citizen now. You just got your naturalization. You're excited to vote for the first time. And they're like, oh, no, you're not allowed to vote, or try to bring you up on charges like they did in Florida with what, DeSantis did with those people, with the election Gestapo they had in Florida. Like, these are so many things that are going on to trying to make it more difficult for people to vote. And you would think that in a constitutional republic where voting is the cornerstone of the health of our society here, that you would want to make sure more people were able to vote legally.
Yeah, you'd think, but political parties try to convince you that they have good ideas and win your vote. Authoritarian movements try and control elections so they can steal your vote and stay in power. And so we're seeing a clear dichotomy there. The split, in my opinion, has happened. But
Yep.
it's not all super discouraging, right? There are attorneys general, there are secretaries of states in a bunch of blue states who have been meeting. They've been sort of scenario planning and looking at all their options. So that
Thank
should be
God.
encouraging to people. And I just want to say, even if you live in a red state, you should reach out to your chief elections officer, to your attorney general, and you should ask them, what are you going to do to protect my vote if the federal government tries to interfere? Because, don't be naive and think this will be constrained to blue states. If Trump takes this as far as he wants, which, there are no adults left in the room, like in the first administration, to keep him in check.
Yep.
Who knows how far he'll try to go. And we can't all be left holding the bag, just standing there saying, well, he can't do that. We have to prepare now.
We can't be left holding our ballots, wondering why they're not being counted.
Or we can't even hold them if they're taken, right? So
That's right.
we really gotta get working.
That's right. I think we have a clip before I let you go of Trump and talking about this.
The leadership doesn't want it. Why don't you want voter ID? There's only one reason. Ready? Because you want to cheat. Okay? They blame it on all sorts of things. They said it's racist. They came up with things that you have to say their imagination is great. No, we're not going to let them cheat like they did in a certain election that we won't talk about. But that election was, and they cheat now. Look, we're not going to let it happen. So we're going to go get the Save America Act, not the Save Act. Nobody knew what the Save Act meant. The Save Act, what save what? Save America Act. And we're going to do everything we can. It's hard to believe. It's hard to believe we're having a hard time. I think anybody that votes against it shouldn't be allowed to run for office. You want to know the truth. But
Oh, that's a new one now. They shouldn't be allowed. If you vote against it, you shouldn't be allowed to run for office. And also, he's pushing senators to try to get rid of the filibuster to get this through on the Senate side. And Senate Majority Leader John Thune, not too keen on that because he understands. He understands what the ramifications of getting rid of the filibuster are.
Yeah, I mean, and I just don't think the votes are there either. I don't think other Republican senators want to vote for this. An interesting example is John Cornyn, right?
Yes.
So John Cornyn's in this weird situation in Texas where somehow that primary has now become about the SAVE Act. But I just want to highlight he wrote an opinion piece.
Why.
Yeah. But he wrote an opinion piece this week in the New York Post. And who do we know that reads the New York Post? And why would John Cornyn from Texas care about writing something for the New York Post? It was for an audience of one.
And
it was basically, a plea to the majority leader, a demand to get rid of the filibuster so they could pass the SAFE Act. But the Washington Post reported today that back in 2021, when Democrats were trying to pass voting protection laws at the federal level to stop some of these, that like the bad voter ID law I mentioned in North Carolina, John Cornyn begged Joe Manchin to stick with him and vote against any efforts to get rid of the filibuster.
And he said that would be the end of the Senate as we know it if he allowed the filibuster to go through. So
there's not enough shame anymore.
There isn't. And there's certainly not enough profiles in courage. Okay. These are profiles in cowardice, every last one of them. And John Cornyn is desperate to keep his seat because he's got Ken Paxton breathing down his neck. He's spent $70+ million trying to break away from Paxton since last summer. And the numbers have not moved much. And Ken Paxton is one of the worst of the worst. He's corrupt. He's a serial cheater. He's a MAGA, poster child. And John Cornyn, all things considered, take away that you may have differences with him on policy. He's been a decent senator for Texas. Like he's not been a MAGA crazy. But what he does is he does stuff like this where he'll capitulate and kiss ass just to go along to get along. And of course, people like that, they don't deserve to be in office either. So we're hoping James Tallarico takes one of them out in November, so that Texas can actually have some real representation and some fresh blood over there. But Cornyn is a perfect example. And, everyone who knows the New York Post is owned by Rupert Murdoch. And it's talking to Trump. And it is pathetic. It's also the same thing, pathetic stuff that like Marco Rubio's walking around in shoes that are too big for him because Trump bought them for him.
The shoe thing is so odd.
Is that unbelievable?
It's so strange.
I should have told Mal to put that picture up. So for those who don't know, Marco Rubio, JD Vance, a couple other people, Trump bought these expensive shoes for them as like gifts or something. But he didn't ask anyone what their shoe size was. He eyeballed it and just predicted, oh, you're this size or that size. So Marco Rubio, somebody caught a shot of him wearing these new shoes with about this much of a gap in them because they're too freaking big. But everyone's too scared not to wear them because, oh my God, they can't upset dear leader. Is that
It's a
pathetic?
circus, and they're all wearing their clown shoes. That's all they can really do.
Yeah, you know what? We'll end on that. That was a good one, Max. Appreciate it. Where can folks find you if they want to support Fair Fight? Max is doing great work over there. That whole team. Where can folks find you and follow your work?
Absolutely. So we're a Georgia-based voting rights organization. We're trying to educate voters, help people get the information they need to turn out and make sure their votes are counted. You can find us at fairfight.com, and across social media, we're at Fairfight Action.
Max Pflugrath, thank you, my friend. Keep up the great work, and we'll spread the word so that we can keep this SAVE Act at bay because this thing cannot pass.
Thank you, Tara.
So see you next time. That is Max. There they are. There it is. Nice work, Mallory. Look at this shit. Are you freaking kidding me? That's right. Clowns wearing their clown shoes. I'm using that, Max. I'm using that. I mean, my God, just when you thought like they're like literal bootlickers. I can't. I just can't. I cannot. Which leads me to Trump's polling. Because as I was saying before we brought in Max, I was talking about Iran and what's happening there. And this is turned into pretty much a disaster. The American people are not convinced that this is a good thing. Yes, we're all glad that the Ayatollahs are dead and, the mullahs are gone. But unfortunately, they've just replaced the head of the snake with somebody else. And the Iranian Revolutionary Guard is still in charge. So they did this without a real plan about what happens after. Like Iran is a very different place. It's not like other countries, and they were prepared for this. They have a succession plan. So basically, the people of Iran who deserve to be free, who deserve to have a more democratic government, they're not going to get it. So all of this is happening for what? I mean, I don't know. But the American people, they're not happy. You got gas prices through the roof and still going up. You've got people saying, oh, well, it's going to be a while, right? Trump's talking about opening up our strategic oil reserves. What are we doing? What are we doing? Well, polling reflects that he's not doing great. This is just today, I believe it was either today or yesterday. Harry Enton, our favorite poll guy over at CNN, because I don't know what happened to Kornacki. I liked Khaki Kornacki. I don't know what happened to him. I don't see him anymore. So Harry Enton is entertaining too. So this is what Harry was talking about as far as where Trump's numbers are right now. And it ain't great.
We have reached a milestone when it comes to President Trump's approval rating. CNN chief data analyst Harry Enton is here with that. So what is that milestone?
I took a look at all the polling, averaged it all together, and we have now reached the year mark. We have now reached the year mark in which he has a negative net approval rating. So we have been talking about this for a long period of time. According to my average of polls, what we've been looking at is every day since March 12th, 2025, President Trump has been underwater, and we've been counting up the days. We've shown this slide a number of times, and we have now reached the point in which Trump has been swimming with the fishes for a year.
So not so happy anniversary.
No.
So
no. And there is more. He's not doing well with independents either. Take a look.
Add with one voting group. John, we have spoken about this. Independence, independence, independence. The center of the electorate. We have been talking about how Trump has been just downright awful with them. And I decided we're going to look back and compare it to other presidents this century at this point in their second term. Compare it to George Bush. Compare it to Barack Obama. And look at that. 38 points underwater at this point. That is worse than Obama by 20 points. That is worse than George W. Bush by double digits. And of course, George W. Bush's second term went way off
Katrina,
the race.
Iraq, ultimately the Great Recession as well. So that is not a comparison.
No, you don't like that.
Very, very, very bad. Okay. These are horrible numbers. Horrible. And listen, the midterms are Democrats. It's Democrats to lose. Now, we're a long way away from it. Anything could happen. So we cannot take these numbers for granted. But 38% underwater with independents. A lot of those folks voted for him. And 22% of Republicans do not think the Iran war is a good idea. That's not insignificant. So Trump trying to do all of this to distract from all the other things. I mean, the numbers were bad before. I think last week, or maybe it was the week before, I was talking about how Susie Wiles, it was reported that she was screaming at staffers in the White House saying, bring some good news. There's no good news in the offing, okay? This has just created even more. Now, in the distraction department here, it has worked. It has distracted from the Epstein files, which were reaching a point of critical mass right before he decided to start launching bombs in Iran. We just saw that Google searches for the Epstein files dropped 95% since this excursion in Iran started. So, but there have been some stories still percolating here and there about what's happening with Epstein, but not like before. But we're going to make sure that's not the case. We cannot let people forget about what's happening. And as we raise more money and as we get more support, we'll be able to do more on the content side. But our plan for the midterms is to make sure that in these swing districts, these competitive districts, that we make the Republicans face their position on Epstein. If this person cannot definitively say that there should be investigations or that there should be full disclosure, they don't deserve your vote. They cannot be trusted. So we're going to keep that at the forefront and in these congressional districts that are competitive, because people need to, it's pretty, would you allow a pedophile protector to do anything for you? So then why would you trust them with your vote and with the taxpayer money to make decisions for you? It's pretty plain and simple. It matters. It matters. So we're not going to let it go. As much as they're going to try to distract, we're not going to let that happen. So speaking of more things, like I said earlier in the show, Doge is back. Now, last year at this time, I think the American people were just shell-shocked. They were walking around like in a state of just shock about what was happening in Washington with Doge coming in and just firing people, trying to access data, canceling programs. I mean, it was I still it hurt my heart. Even in my neighborhood where I live, there were 3 people on my block who were impacted by Doge. One of them worked for USAID. Their entire program, they were subcontractors for USAID, helping with distribution of vaccines and medical supplies in third world countries. And she and one other person were the only people who were left. She had to fire 15 people in her program. I mean, it was crazy. Another person on my block works for a diplomatic security, and she just had a baby, and she was able to work from home. She was able to telecommute, and that's when they made everybody go back to work. And she's like, now I have to get a nanny, and I have to commute to work where I could do everything from home. She was a lawyer for DS. I mean, it was just ridiculous. And we kept seeing stories about who these freaking people were, these Doge douchebags that were going in and completely dismantling federal agencies and federal departments and all of that. We're like, who are these fuckers? A lot of them were, remember Big Balls, the 19-year-old? Okay. You had a lot of these losers, these MAGA, wannabes and these Elon bros that were accessing really important information. Well, come to find out, the National Endowment for the Humanities has sued because they got rid of all these grants. They basically wiped out our federal arts programs and all these things. And so there's a lawsuit. And in the depositions, they have gone public. They have deposed some of these Doge fuckers and asking them about getting rid of the DEI programs. Remember how they did all of that? I told you one of my students that was in my Harvard cohort is in a certain part of the military and was talking about how they wouldn't allow them to have any of the women's mentor for girls programs, like mentors, women in the military. They'd have these programs where they would recruit young girls into the military. Wiped all that out because of DEI. It was crazy, crazy shit. Here, I want to show 2 depositions of these Doge fuckers. Okay, I am not surprised that this is what they look like, but listen to what they say. Let's start with Justin Fox first.
DEI.
He was asked to define DEI.
There was the EO explicitly laid out the details. I don't remember it off the top of my head.
It's okay. I'm asking for your understanding of it.
Yeah, my understanding was exactly what was written in the EO.
Okay, so can you...
I don't remember what was in the EO.
So right now, do you have an understanding of what DEI is?
Yeah.
Okay, so what's your understanding as you sit here today in this deposition?
Well, it was exactly what was written in the EO. And so anytime that we would look at a grant through the lens of complying with an executive order, we would just refer back to the EO and assess if this grant had relation to it.
Okay, but I guess I'm stepping back from your methodology strictly in terminating the grants. Do you have an understanding as you sit here today of what DEI means?
Yeah.
Okay, so what's your understanding of what it means?
Well, it is exactly what was written in the EO.
Okay, so
and I don't have the EO in front of me, but that was we would always reference back to the EO and make sure that this grant was in compliance with the EO.
I understand that. Okay, but I'm not asking necessarily about what was in the EO. I'm asking very specifically about your present understanding of what of DEI. Do you have a present understanding of DEI?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you explain what that present understanding is?
Well, it's just easier for me to be referencing back to the EO.
Are you refusing to answer the question?
I'm not refusing to answer the question.
Okay.
I just feel that referencing back to the verbatim executive order was the best way for us to capture all of the DEI language.
What is there even to say? Are you fucking kidding me? That's right. He can't define it. Most people couldn't. When you saw man on the street interviews, when people, voters, these Trump supporters that were like, "Oh, we got to get rid of DEI," and people were like, "Well, what is it?" Just like they couldn't define critical race theory either. That's why they got rid of that, because critical race theory was something else that no one understood, even though that was the boogeyman in 2021. They tried it here in Virginia. And they replaced the critical race theory bullshit with DEI. Somebody came up with that. So are you serious? This guy, Justin Fox, was like the lead for one of the main Doge teams that went into multiple agencies. That's just a clip. This was obviously a several hours long deposition. There's another clip that I didn't give Mallory to play because it was just so infuriating, where he actually was talking about, he was asked about why a program about the Black experience in prisons was not a worthy grant to be funded for this documentary. And he was like, well, talking about slavery. That might have been another one. And he's like, well, it doesn't really have a benefit to humankind. So learning about Black violence in our history doesn't have any value. And he said, oh, well, I didn't say that. And they were like, you literally just said that. And he was like, no, I didn't. And they made them rewind and read back his exact words. And then he was like, oh, well, that's not what I meant. I misspoke. I misphrased it. This is the attitude. This was the attitude. This guy, he was going in, he wanted to get into the general accounting office. There's emails about how, yeah, hi, I'm Justin Fox and I'm with Doge and we'd like access to the government accounting office database. Let's set up a time where we can talk about it. Like, these are the people. God knows what has happened to our data. Well, here's another one of these pricks that was on his team here that was also deposed. Listen to this one.
In like, let's say, scholarly peer review?
No.
Okay.
Hey, Mal, can you rewind it from the beginning? It cut off the first part of the question. I just started from the very beginning because the first part of the question is important here. He's asked, have you ever peer reviewed anything? Do you have any scholarly knowledge about peer reviews? Go ahead, play it.
Do you have any history in like, let's say, scholarly peer review?
No.
Okay. So, but this judgment call was made by you and your personal judgment combined with Justin's personal judgment to cancel grants based on DEI?
Yes.
Okay. Do you think it's inappropriate in any way that someone in their 20s with no experience with grants or federal government was making personal judgment calls about what grants to cancel?
Objection. No, I don't think it's inappropriate.
Okay. Why not?
Objection. I think a person can have enough judgment from reading books and being well informed outside of traditional experience to make judgment calls about obvious things like a grant that literally lists DEI in its description to know whether it violates an executive order.
I'm sorry.
So this kid is in his 20s. I just saw the comment that said he looks like he's 14. That's what I said. He's got the smug look on his face. The lawyer asks him, like, do you have any experience in peer-reviewed granting processes or anything like that? And he's like, well, no. Because that's what he was tasked with doing. He was tasked with deciding what federal grants were still allowed to fund programs and things that were DEI in the arts and humanities and things like that. And this is the guy making that decision based on what experience? You don't know shit from shit. You're from some 20-something-year-old jerk-off that doesn't know anything about anything. But, well, if it said LGBTQ or if it said black or if it said woman or whatever, right? They used AI programs to find certain things which didn't work well, like trans, right? And they ended up canceling a transatlantic security program that was kind of important. But anyway, so, I mean, these are the people that were rummaging through our federal government, destroying large parts of our federal system and important programs so badly, by the way, that they're actually rehiring people in a lot of these agencies, which is kind of slipped under the radar also. Just this week, they're like, yeah, we got to hire some of these people back. Well, no shit, you idiots. I mean, my God. Well, there's another part of this that should alarm everyone because in the headlines, we just saw this week that there was a whistleblower, God bless them, came forward and said, yeah, so this guy tried to leave, actually did leave, with a thumb drive full of millions of people's Social Security information. He downloaded this off the Social Security Administration's database, which is very highly protected. Okay. Whistleblower claims ex-Doge member says he took Social Security data to his new job. All right. This is very, very bad. Our Social Security information is some of the most protected information. It's the most private information about all of us in the entire country. And this fucking guy downloaded it. This Doge guy downloaded it onto a thumb drive and was going to take it with him to his new job, which some were claiming was Palantir related, which is Peter Thiel's company that is using, they're all up in everything with surveillance and DHS and ICE. Palantir is very dangerous, very, very dangerous. But this whistleblower was like, the only reason why we don't know, did he access it? Because if he did, that's illegal. We don't know what he did with it. The only reason why we don't know for sure what happened is because he couldn't figure out how to open it. He asked this whistleblower how to open it because the Social Security Administration information is on like a different database system. And it was so antiquated that this kid didn't know how to use it because it's not like up to date. This is illegal. This happened. So thank God the Oversight Committee is investigating this. The Inspector General's Office of the Social Security Administration is now investigating this. Somebody needs to go to jail. If anybody else did this, this is jailable. What are we doing? So, it's important that we know. And I think, like, as Democrats in this midterm election, they need to bring these things up, that Donald Trump empowered Elon Musk to let these freaking little 20-something-year-old know-nothing jerk-offs invade our private data, our Pentagon, our the Defense Department, Social Security, Department of Justice, the Health and Human Services. I mean, everywhere. There needs to be consequences. There absolutely has to be consequences. But now you know. So at least there is some good reporting still happening that's uncovering this. And God bless those whistleblowers who are coming forward because they're so alarmed by what's going on here. So here to inform, folks, here to inform. So if you're upset about it, if you're upset about Iran, if you're upset about Doge, if you're upset about gas prices, you're upset about Donald Trump saying F you to Congress, if you're upset about the fact that the Department of Homeland Security is still in a shutdown, we're still in a shutdown. If you're upset about the fact that you have to stand online for 4 hours in an airport domestically, like New Orleans or Atlanta, that's what happened over the weekend because TSA agents are walking off the job or quitting because they're tired of working for free. If you're upset about all of that, come out on March 28th. There's another No Kings coming up. March 28th, No Kings 3. Seneca Project is a partner organization again with the No Kings Indivisible folks. We are excited about this and we'll be out there. Actually, I'll be out there with my protest gear. This is actually one of from my Uncompromised collection. If you guys follow me on Substack, you know I have the Uncompromised merch with a message collection. This is the Silence is Not an Option hat. You can get those. We have our Seneca Project merch. You can go to our Seneca Project page if you want. Cat Lady, this Cat Lady votes, will not obey in advance. There's all kinds of cool merch that you can get if you're going out to the protests, that we encourage you to order it now because it takes about a week or so to get to you. So if you want to go out there with merch with a message, you can go to senecaproject.us to our merch shop, or you can go over to my Uncompromised on Substack. I think my merch shop is tarasetmayer.shopify.com. If you want to go over there for some of that stuff too. But we've got cool Seneca things as well. And we have a new Seneca video, a promo that we just did. We just released this in partnership with Indivisible about the Iran war. It's called No Forever Wars, Not in Our Name. Check it out.
Wars. We don't need the wars. The United States launched Operation Epic Fury in Iran.
The president posting wars can be fought forever.
Let's start it over. StreamYard's been weird. All right, there we go.
No new wars. We don't need the wars. The United States launched Operation Epic Fury in Iran.
The president posting wars can be fought forever.
This is a war of choice by President Trump.
We don't need another endless war.
He's bombing all around the world, kidnapping presidents of other countries. This has to end.
No one man can decide who to go to war with.
Trump is acting unilaterally.
He never asked Congress. He never asked us.
We, the people of the United States, are here to tell the Trump administration, you may wage this war in our names, but not with our consent.
No kings! No kings! No kings! No kings! No kings!
All right, so that is one of 3 that we're putting out in our series. Shout out to New York Betty, our editors that helped out on that. And if you guys go to our social media pages, wherever you are, and please share that far and wide. Share, share, share. We want to get the word out to everyone, help it go viral. We're on everywhere: TikTok, Blue Sky, Twitter, YouTube, Threads, Instagram, wherever you hang out, on Facebook, wherever you hang out on socials. Please, please, please forward that and share far and wide so lots of people see it and get excited about it. So that's our latest. And of course, as we end tonight, we cannot end without my bright spot. Now, I was considering, because there's a lot of bad news, just showing you guys a picture of Rafi's belly. because we get a lot of cat butt when Rafi decides to show up on screen. But I was going to show you cat belly tonight because it's so stinking cute that you can't go wrong with my cat's belly because he sleeps like this. He just sleeps like a spread eagle on his back. But then I decided, you know what? I'll just post those. Maybe I'll show Rafi cat belly another day. I really wanted to give a shout out to, since it is Women's History Month, one of my really good friends who has gotten an honor. She's been recognized for this amazing work that she's done. And she's been listed as one of the Inc. magazine's 500 like female badasses in business. And this is a great thing. It recognizes women every year in this space. And my friend Lauren McCann started this incredible company called Procure Impact. And it's actually an interesting story. I knew her dad. We used to be very close friends when I was on Capitol Hill. That's how I know Lauren. And her dad, unfortunately, her mom and dad went full MAGA, and it was really hard for her. Lauren was really a great person, and she used to work kind of in the libertarian space, and she's an incredible singer. I went to her wedding down in Charlottesville. I remember when she got married, and unfortunately, her parents went MAGA and she did not. And Lauren and I didn't talk for a couple years. I haven't talked to her dad in many because of Trump. And I ran into her on a flight to Dallas. And this was about 3 years ago. And I was like, Lauren, she's like, Tara, oh my gosh. And we sat next to each other on our flight to Dallas. And she told me about this new company she started called Procure Impact. What they do is they work with organizations that are socially conscious and help underprivileged populations get work, whether they were in prison, whether they were disabled, maybe they were homeless, people that have incredible talents that know how to make things. They have a skill, whether they're cooks, they came up with some kind of good idea, and they give them employment, and they take their products and they help place them with different businesses. So they help procurement, and they've really zeroed in on the hospitality space. So since 2023, she has built with her co-founder there, the co-president, they have built this incredible business where they have they've employed over 1 million people's like work hours and taken their products and placed them in mini bars in hotels. So they've gotten partnerships with all the like major hotel chains. So you may be in, if you're wherever at a Hilton or a Hyatt or somewhere, and you have the mini bar, and sometimes you see these like locally made products, that could be one of Procure Impact's clients that they helped place their products in it. It's an amazing program. You should go to Procure Impact. I think it's .com. Don't get me wrong, but Procure Impact. They have an Instagram page, and check out what they do. This is like it touched my heart because many people know that my mom started a homeless program 20 years ago in the Florida Keys when my parents lived down there, and I helped her get that off the ground and get funding for it. And my mom really changed a lot of people's lives helping the homeless. We just met incredible people that had unbelievable stories, and they just had a tough time in life, or they had, trauma unresolved, or they were veterans, or it was just amazing. And some were painters or carpenters or incredible. They had they were just amazing people. So helping folks who have fallen into a bad way or just need a second chance in life, it really touches me. So when Lauren told me she was doing that, I do everything I can to try to bring attention to what they're doing, because people deserve a second chance, and they feel value, and they feel their lives have meaning and purpose when they have a skill and someone sees them and gives them that opportunity. So shout out to Lauren and all the other amazing women on that list. But Procure Impact, I love what they're doing, and it keeps makes me happy that there's good people in the world doing great things, helping other humans, because we need more of those bright spots in the world. So on that note, thank you everybody for hanging out with me this week. Thank you to Max Flugrath from Fair Fight, talking about the SAVE Act and educating us about that. Make sure you guys check out Fair Fight and what they're doing, and stay vigilant, folks, and make sure You spread the word about No Kings coming up on March 28th and get your merch. Get your merch. All right. We'll see you next week, my friends.
No new wars. We don't need the wars. The United States launched Operation Epic Fury in Iran.
The president posting wars can be fought forever.
This is a war of choice by President Trump. We don't need another endless war.
He's bombing all around the world, kidnapping presidents of other countries. This has to end.
No one man can decide who to go to war with.
Trump is acting unilaterally.
He never asked Congress. He never asked us.
We, the people of the United States, are here to tell the Trump administration, you may wage this war in our names, but not with our consent.
No kings! No kings! No kings! No kings! No kings!
You can hear the man screaming, Ayuda, help me, during the struggle.
ICE agents dragged this pregnant woman across the street.
Are we really going to be the Gestapo? Where's your papers? Is that what we've come to?
I know right here.
To all ICE officers, you have federal immunity in the conduct of your duties.
I'm literally a U.S. citizen.
That's fine, dude. I'm not mad at you. No!
The precedent here is very simple.
What the fuck did you do? You are a fucking criminal!
That guy's protected by absolute immunity.
We will find you. You will never return.
They're fucking up this community.
To ICE, get the fuck out of Minneapolis.
No new wars. We don't need the wars. The United States launched Operation Epic Fury in Iran.
The president posting wars can be fought forever.
This is a war of choice by President Trump. We don't need another endless war.
He's bombing all around the world, kidnapping presidents of other countries. This has to end.
No one man can decide who to go to war with.
Trump is acting unilaterally.
He never asked Congress. He never asked us.
We, the people of the United States, are here to tell the Trump administration, you may wage this war in our names, but not with our consent.
No kings!